B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'natzliach. Okay, Shiur Torah. One thing I thought about today, and we were just talking about it before, rabbis. Rabbis, when you think about, the real rabbis of the world, in my opinion, my Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi is amazing. My cousin Rabbi Ephraim Kachman is extraordinary. Rabbi Zamir Cohen, Rabbi Avnon Yitzchak. Those are some of the few that I follow closely and I think are amazing. But the Pirkei Avot, which is one of the parts of the Mishnah, it says Ta'aseh lecha rav, meaning that every person needs to get himself a rabbi. Now, what is it to get a rabbi? What is it? Okay, so everybody goes to the Beit Knesset. There's a rabbi there. That's not a rabbi. He's a rabbi, of course. He's a rabbi, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's your rabbi. If you're making somebody your rabbi, that means that he is your consultant for everything. You have problems with the marriage, you go to that rabbi. You have problems with the religion, you go to that rabbi. You have problems with the marriage, you go to that rabbi.
You feel comfortable with it.
It's somebody that you're making as, in essence, a partner in your life. That's what Ta'aseh lecha rav means. Make yourself a rabbi. Because you have to feel extremely comfortable with this person. Now, to just make any rabbi your rabbi, it's like making any woman your wife. It doesn't make any sense. You have to think about this. You have to obviously talk to the person, see if you get along with the person, see if they understand you, see if you guys are on the same wavelength. Some people are on the same wavelength as you, some people are not. You have to, talk to the person and see if this is someone you can connect with. Because just because somebody has a beard and a hat and a suit and all of that stuff doesn't necessarily make them qualified to be your rabbi. They could very well be an amazing rabbi, but it's not necessarily could be yours. It could be somebody that's completely the opposite of that as your rabbi. So, but it's our job to get ourselves rabbis. It's not their job. It's our job. Their job is obviously to monitor the congregation, try to help whoever comes, and what they do is extraordinary, which is my next point. But it's our job to find ourselves a rabbi, because they don't know if we already have one or not. They don't know if we're ready to actually have one or not. Most people look at rabbis as something very superficial. They look at them as someone that's at the synagogue, that they see them maybe once a week on Shabbat when they go to the synagogue, and he's a nice guy, and you say hello, and you try to respect him, and when anything goes wrong, you yell at them. They look at them as almost like janitors or something like that. It's very, very wrong of how people view them, but that's just the reality. But the point of what I'm trying to make, aside from our responsibility to get ourselves rabbis, where we can talk to them, text them, email them, go meet them, talk to them about things that are very, very intimate, aside from that, what all of us need to do is start realizing why are we underappreciating all of these rabbis. Now, even the big rabbis that you see in the world, even the ones that you see on YouTube and on Facebook and all of these people, they go through very, very similar things like any other local rabbi. Rabbis in today's age are the most unappreciated piece of gold you could ever imagine. And the best example that, that I thought of over today and the last few days, that I think is really extraordinary about it, of what people don't realize, is that a rabbi can never have a bad day. If you really think about it, they're not allowed to have a bad day. And I don't mean that they never have bad days, but they can never show anyone that they are having a bad day. Because people, if you're a rabbi, people come to you every day. One after another, after another, after another. And what do they come to? They don't come to you, hey, Rabbi, I just won the lotto, I wanted to give you half of it. No, never. Never in history does that happen. What do they come to you? Rabbi, I just lost all my money. Rabbi, my wife is cheating on me. Rabbi, my kids are having problems in school. Rabbi, I have this problem. Rabbi, this one's dying. Rabbi, I'm dying. Problems, tzarot. Tzarot, all day, that's all they hear, is tzarot and tzarot and tzarot and problems from all walks of life. If you want to really, honestly, I think that somebody should make like some type of movie about this, of just taping one rabbi's phone calls or conversations for 1 week. Just 1 week. If anyone listens or watches this movie of just listening, not responding, not interacting, just listening to the phone calls that any of these rabbis get each week, I bet anything that person not only does tshuva, but from that point on will never ever say anything bad about any rabbi. Because when you really realize what they go through and what they have to do all day, it's something extraordinary. They're not allowed to have a bad day. What are you going to say? So somebody says, listen, Rabbi, so-and-so has the machala. They have the disease. They have cancer. Lo alenu. The doctor said they only have a few months. What's the rabbi say? Yeah, I'm having problems with my parnasa too. Oh yeah, I know, my so-and-so I know also died. What is he going to say to you? He can't. What is he going to say? He's not a psychiatrist that is going to tell you, oh listen, maybe if you meditate and you pay me an extra $300 an hour, maybe it'll go away. No, the rabbi is going to try to give you some solid advice. Pray to Hashem, get closer to Hashem, do things that are going to be conducive to your life, spend time with them. He's going to try to teach you things that you can take with you for the rest of your life, not just for that one particular meeting. And I'm talking about real rabbis. I'm not just talking about anybody with a beard. If it was just about anybody with a beard, you'd call me a rabbi already. Well, it's not a rabbi, not even 1% of a rabbi. But the point here is that when you think about these special people, that they go through so much, and it reminds me for myself, and the reason why I even had the thought of this is because I thought about my business days, when I had all these employees, and I remember, when we were at the top, there was one thing different than when we started falling. The one big thing that changed is that when we were at the top, there was never one employee that ever knew I had a bad day. They wouldn't know, they would see me mad or not mad, but as far as knowing what's going on in my life, never happened. Never. You do your job, I do my job. If I'm upset at something or not, people stay away, they're just minding their own business, they do their own thing. But the difference was that once things started changing in the company was when I started making friends. When my employees became my friends. And that was one of the biggest mistakes. Because once you share these stories with people, initially it feels good, but then they forget that you're their boss. They forget that every time that they cash a check, you're the one that's giving it to them. So the relationship changes drastically. So what happens is that when they didn't know if I'm having a bad day or didn't even know why something was bad or not bad or good or anything, things were one way. When they started knowing, it only went downhill from there. The rabbi is very, very different. He can't ever do what I did. Obviously, the Torah teaches him not to. But the point here is that he is never even going to think about sharing his problems, because some of the big tzaddikim, when you hear some of these stories, you hear, for example, stories about Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. There was one Friday, that a woman came, waited, and she's saying, I have to speak to the rabbi, I have to speak to the rabbi. I was like, it's Friday, they're going to eat. It's a bad day. Come back on Sunday. No, I have to talk to them now. Long story short, she wouldn't leave. Finally, they talked to the rabbi. They told him, yes, this woman could let her in. They let the woman in, and then they start seeing the rabbi cry with her. So it's not that she was just crying. He was crying with her. They were both hysterical crying. That's a rabbi. That's why Rabbi Ovadia Yosef was Gdola Dor Zichrono Livracha. It wasn't necessarily just the immense amount of Torah that he knew. It wasn't just the fact that, the stories that they tell about him are just only a quarter of the real stories that actually happened. But it's the fact that he lived it 1,000% of the time, and he felt what you felt. So when you have a connection with a rabbi, he's going to cry with you. When you feel sorrow, he feels sorrow. When you're upset, he's upset. When you're losing, he's losing. And that's the difference. But obviously, to develop a relationship like this takes time. You have to be honest with them. You have to stay in touch with them. You can't just expect that if you call this rabbi twice a year, right before the holidays, and ask him for a blessing, that you're going to have this relationship. You have to work at this, just like anything else in life. But the minimum that we can do is start thinking about rabbis a little bit differently. When we see that, we only see them once a week or a couple of times a week if we go to the shul more often, and we see them and we just see just a small part of their life. We see them giving a little lecture. Sometimes we like it, sometimes we don't like it. We see some people playing with their phone in the middle. We see some people completely not paying attention. We sometimes ourselves don't pay attention. We do all of these things. No one ever asks what's going on with his life. And no one's generally going to know. And I can tell you that some of the problems that we're going through are the very same ones that they're going through. But I saw one time a picture, one of these pictures they put on the internet, and they have a picture of a lion, and it says the difficult part about being at the top is that no one asks if you're okay. That's the difficult part of being at the top. No one asks if you're okay. And I remember that for myself. I mean, when I was at the top of my game, and I was doing extremely well, no one ever asked, hey, by the way, you all right? Is everything okay? I mean, because they're just assuming just because you have a lot of money, or you have this, or you have that everything assuming is okay. But if you look at the world today, some of the most famous, horrendous stories that you hear about are from the rich and famous. Unfortunately, we just heard about one of our own, killed himself just a few months ago, very famous comedian, Robin Williams.
Right.
What didn't he have? Money he had, wife he had, kids he had, career he was at the top of his game. What didn't he have? From the outside perspective, he had everything. From the inside, he had nothing.
No Torah.
That's exactly it. And that's the thing. So when you have just material things, people assume that you're okay. When you're in a position of power, people assume you're okay. So they don't ask if you're okay or not. They just assume. And that's the one thing that we have to realize about our rabbis, and why we have to appreciate them, because they're going through the very same thing, if not more difficult things than what we're going through. You know how difficult it is to raise money just to keep a congregation alive? Or to raise money just to help some of these rabbis, like Rabbi Mizrahi, that tries to help anyone he possibly can do tshuva and come back to Hashem? These stories are things that, it's just amazing to me that people have such a hard time giving money to help people save souls. But that's part of this generation's tikkun. If you ask somebody, listen, give $500 to the shul, and we'll spend $200 of it putting a sign with your name on it, and $300 we'll use to do Suda Shlishit and also maybe pay a bill or two. Oh yeah, for sure. Tell them, give me $500 to buy 500 discs to help people do tshuva. No, Apito, it's too much. Things are tough. Things are tight. Everybody always has an excuse. Okay, give $100. Okay, you know what? Come back to me next week. I've seen it and I've heard it. And I could just imagine what these rabbis deal with. But that's the thing. People are tying everything to something material. They're always tying something to material. And one of the proofs of it is if you look at any major donation, it's always publicized. It's always publicized. You always know, okay, so-and-so donated $10 million to this university, that hospital, this congregation, so-and-so. You hear it all the time. You have to hear their name. Why can't they be anonymous? Why? Because the big part of the donation is because they want to know. They want everybody to know.
I'll be anonymous if let's say if I had a lot of money.
Bezat Hashem.
I would, if I won the lottery, I would be anonymous.
That's the key. The key is to make sure that we know these things and we're prepared for them. The point of pointing other people's mistakes or our own mistakes is not to say, ha ha ha, you did it, or ha ha ha, you're a rasha. Chas v'chalila. That's not the point. The point of doing all of this is so we learn what not to do. To remember what we need to do ourselves. That's the point. You're never ever supposed to remind someone that did tshuva about his past sins. Not allowed, it's a big sin. So if somebody did tshuva, and he's already in it, you're never allowed to tell him, hey, by the way, remember those times when you used to be Mechalel Shabbat? Not allowed to do that. You can completely destroy him with that. There's actually a story in the Gemara. Two big sages became a chavruta. They started learning together many years, very, very connected. One time they got into an argument, and one of them mentioned it to the other one. The other one said, okay, so what am I doing? If you mention this to me, what's the point of everything that I did? If you're still remembering me as that person, and not what I became after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years of doing this, it's not worth anything. Of course, it's worth something between him and Hashem, but the point here is that for us, we have a direct connection with each other, and we have a direct connection with Hashem. But with Hashem, we don't see him, we don't feel him, we don't smell him, we don't touch him. So when something is more physical, we feel closer to it. That's just our reality. You feel closer to your wife or to your best friend or to your partner than you do with Hashem. It's supposed to be different, but that's just the way it is for our generation. So we have to make sure that we protect each other and ourselves by not reminding each other about our past. Doesn't matter what you did in the past. If somebody did tshuva, life started at that point. Somebody started doing tshuva and then they fell off, you have to get them back on there, and then they start again, as if they never sinned. You can't bring people down and remind them of all the things they used to do. Like a lot of people like to talk about, what were these rabbis' former lives? Like some of these big Baalei Tshuva, some of these big rabbis are Baalei Tshuva themselves, like Rabbi Amnon Yitzchak, Rabbi Mizrahi, some of these sages in the Gemara. Rabbi Akiva himself was a Baal Tshuva. His parents were converts. He was a Baal Tshuva himself. You have Rish Lakish. He's a huge figure in the Gemara. I'm going to tell you one of his stories later today. That
he was a criminal. No?
Not only why do they mention he was a criminal? To not because they want to insult him. Chas v'chalila. This guy is mentioned in the Gemara. And just so you know, just for future knowledge, anyone that's mentioned by name in the Gemara had the ability to bring back the dead, to resurrect the dead. There's many people that are in the Gemara but are not mentioned by name. They say, it was said that this and this. So when they say it was said, and they don't mention the name, obviously somebody said it, but they don't mention him by name. Why don't they mention him by name? Because he wasn't able to bring back the dead.
Why? What does that have to do with bringing back the dead?
It's the level that you need to get to be accepted into the club of being in something that's divine. The Talmud is not. It's not a book you buy at Barnes and Nobles for $9.99 and right next to Harry Potter.
How did they know that he can revive the dead?
They see their actions. Yeah, this is
something that was attempted.
Of course, many times.
It's allowed to be attempted.
If somebody has the ability to bring back the dead, I mean, there's stories of actually, was it Aliyah Kadosh? I don't know. I'm very bad with names, but there was two sages. They lived in different towns, and one of them invited the other one to come over for Purim. He said, "Come over for Purim. We'll enjoy it." So big sages come together. It's big kedusha. Anyway, long story short, they spend time together. They enjoy, and everything is good. They wake up in the morning, and he sees that his friend that came from out of town is dead. Got stabbed. He's got a knife on him, and he knew he killed him. They both got drunk, and he killed him. He brought him back. Brought him back from the dead. And he said, he went on his way. So the next year, he invited him again. So he responded with a letter, no, lo kol yom Purim. That's where the expression came from. Not every day is Purim. We say not every day is Purim, we mean it as not every day is a miracle of Purim. But the expression actually came from where he was telling him that not every day, I'm afraid that if I come there, you're going to kill me again. Maybe you can't bring me back this time. That's where the expression lo kol yom Purim came from. So he responded to him, "Oh, if you think that I could bring you back from, if you're impressed by me bringing you back from the dead, I should show you what else I can do." And he came. So there's examples of this type of stuff happening.
But Hashem is the one that takes, he gives and he takes. How can a human determine that it's time to
The
bring
human
back
is
the
not
dead?
doing it, meaning they're not doing it. It's not their power. It's not a tzaddik's power to do it. They know a certain amount of Torah, an extraordinary amount of Kabbalah and Torah, and they have an extraordinary connection with Hashem, and they follow a certain protocol and connect to Hashem, pray to Hashem to give them the ability to do it. They don't. No one ever says that they can do it. It's Hashem is doing it,
So
of
they're
course.
praying, they're praying on behalf of that soul.
Yeah, they're
They
praying
ask
on
him
behalf
to
of
bring
that
them back.
soul. Yeah, of course. It's not them. They don't have power. They're people. I mean, what did Moshe Rabbeinu say that he is? Nothing. He's afar. What did Avraham Avinu say? Afar. What did David HaMelech say he was? A worm. These are the biggest. And they're saying they're smaller than these people. What, any of these sages could compete with Moshe Rabbeinu? No, ma pitom. But at the same token, again, they all think of themselves, they're all very, very humble, you can't even be a tzaddik without being humble. One doesn't go with the other, just you can't mix. You can't be a tzaddik and have gava. You can't be a tzaddik and be an egotistical person. You can't be a tzaddik and have a lot of pride and think that you need to show off. One does not go with the other. It's like fire and water. The only thing in creation that has fire and water is the sky. That's it. Other than that, nothing else could ever exist with fire and water. Why? Because Hashem made it. But as far as tzaddik and gava, it's the same black and white. Doesn't even mix. Has nothing to do with each other. That's why the Gemara says, someone who knows Torah but has bad ethics or bad midot is the equivalent of a dead animal laying in the street, which they say nevela srucha.
Wow.
Is the equivalent of a dead animal in the middle of the street. And this is somebody who knows Torah. Just imagine what it is somebody who doesn't know Torah, who has bad midot.
Huh.
Okay, but the point is here, if someone who knows Torah, why is there a special, significance? Why are they mentioning him? Because if you know Torah, and you still haven't worked on your midot, then that means that you've spent 10, 20, 30 years learning nothing. You've learned nothing. You learned a story. You've treated the Torah, chas v'chalila, but you treated the Torah like it was a Harry Potter book. Or one of these other nonsense books that they sell in the stores and make billions of dollars on. That's what you treat it, like a story. Oh yeah, Moses went up the mountain 40 days and he came down and he got really angry. And then he threw the 10 Commandments and then he went up just like it shows in the movie. And then he came down again. You treat it like a story. You've learned nothing. So that's the thing. So what we have to do is we have to learn from all of these stories of what are we doing that's wrong? What do we need to correct? How fast can we correct them? And what can we work on now? You can't fix all of your midot on day one. It's impossible. The Gemara specifically says that to work on one midah, one part of your characteristics can take 6 years to fix. 6 years. It's the equivalent of difficulty, if not more difficult, than finishing studying the entire Gemara, the entire Shas. To fix one midah. Now, that's not trying to tell us, to discourage us, and tell us, listen, it's so hard, don't even try fixing yourself. The point is to try to fix it as soon as possible because you have a lot to fix. But what's the way to fix it? What is the potion that makes it very easy to fix? So easy that you're amazed that this statement even exists. Torah. Torah is the only thing in the universe that when you learn it, you change and you become a better person. If you're learning it for real, not you're learning the stories because you like stories. You're learning it because you're learning, okay, why does this one say this? Why does that one say this? What's, using your brain. You're going into it. You could, obviously the stories are very entertaining. It's one of my personal favorites. But you're learning what is the point of this story. Why are they saying, okay, this is a holy book. This is a divine book. Hashem put this book together. Why did he put this in the story? Why? You're thinking, you're using your brain to learn all of these things. And then you realize, this is something I can do. This is something I can do to improve myself. And you work on these things and you start becoming a better person. Now, if I read, I don't know how many Harry Potter books, I just keep mentioning that because I hear about it. Kids like to hear that book. How many books does Harry Potter have? Is it like a series or is it like one?
No, there's more than one.
There is like more than 7, I think.
7, okay. So it's 7 books. If I read all 7 books 50 times, is it going to change my life? Other than me knowing the book by heart? No.
It's not all entertainment. You watch a show.
Okay. So if I read one of these other books about the vampires, there's also a series, Twilight. I read the whole series. Okay, so I know the story.
And then you're going to watch the movie after.
And then I watch the movie, and I've completely wasted even more time, and nothing happened in my life. But if I just read one Masechet from the Gemara, just one of these books, if I read one of these books, any of these books that you see over here, one of them, I guarantee anyone that studies just one of them, by the end of that book, his life is different. Just one book. One. I'm not saying the whole Gemara. I'm not saying you have to finish a whole 7 years worth of studies to really. I'm talking about just one. Pick one, study it. Just one book. Study one book, your whole life changes. Another book changes again. Another book changes again. And then after you finish the whole Gemara and you go back to the original one that you've already studied, you studied it again, it changes again. That's how you know the Torah is divine. That's for me, that was one of my proofs that connected with me. I knew, how do I know that the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, the Torah itself, is divine? It's nothing else in this world. That every single parasha, you go to Beknesset on Shabbat, they read the parasha, and you hear the story. Sometimes you read along, sometimes you read on your own, sometimes you're completely out of it and not listening, but assuming we're all good and we're all listening and we're going along and we're understanding what he's saying, if you actually read the parasha itself, and then maybe you read a few of the Mefarshim translating what's actually happening, you see how that story, what's happening, is not only relevant to today, to our times today, but it's actually relevant to today, meaning that week that you're in.
It's true.
Something in the world happened, either directly to our life or around us, that we're aware of, that the parasha is related to it. Every single parasha is relevant to today. Now, when somebody says, no, what do you mean? I heard the story about Moses and he went up in the mountain and down in the mountain. Again, we'll go back to the same story because that's a story that everybody knows. Went up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain again, down the mountain. A lot of people don't know he actually went up 3 times, down 3 times. He was there 120 days, not 80 days. 40 days the first time. Went down. Hashem said, your nation sinned. Let me destroy them and start a nation from you. So after Moshe Rabbeinu went down and broke the 10 commandments, he went back up in the mountain and he prayed for 40 days. Non-stop. No eating, no drinking. The body was here, the neshama was in the heavens. That's the only way you could explain no drinking, no eating, no nothing. The body can't survive that. The body can't survive even 3 or 4 days of that. For 40 days, he prayed and said, if you're going to destroy them, destroy me first. Wipe me out of your book. Because he felt it was his fault. And that was the difference between him and any other person in the world. Any other person in the world, number one, would have said, you want to destroy him and start a nation with me? Sure, why not? Go ahead. Let's do it. Why you wait? I thought you'd never ask. That's number one. Number two, they would say, hey, okay, listen, you want to destroy them? Fine, but maybe the next one, have somebody else run it. Or three, they just completely would not care to go through all of this. They sinned. It's not his fault. What did he do? He says, it's my fault. And he looked for reasons of why it was his fault. The first reason that he used was that he said, Hashem told me to go down, but I said, let me stay here for one more day. To make it one day extra. It was supposed to actually go down before they built before they had the egel, what was it called in English?
Golden calf.
Golden calf. There you go. See, I'm 25 years in America, you still don't know English. Golden calf. There you go. I used here 26 years, so that's why. So the golden calf, and Hashem said, "You'll go down." He goes, "No, let me stay with you one more day." So he said, and Hashem said, "Okay, fine." Obviously, Hashem knew what was going to happen, but he gave him the ability for free choice. And he said, if I would have listened to you, it wouldn't have happened. I would have come down before they built it, before the Satan would have come to them and showed them fake pictures, a fake movie of me being dead. That's what the Satan did. The Satan came down to them and showed them a fake movie of the angels carrying Moshe's body. That's what the Midrash tells us. So they said, oh, he's dead. So we need a new connection to Hashem. So that's what started. So he said, okay, it's my fault. And then when that wasn't accepted, or that wasn't enough, he said, okay, it's my fault also because the person that gave them the ability to do it, the only reason why he's alive is my fault. And this goes back, did I tell you guys this story? About the Mate? No? Okay. So, going back a couple of 100 years before Mount Sinai, there was Yosef HaTzadik, you know his story, his brothers sold him, and then he was in jail. Well, first he was working for someone, and the woman tried to be with him. She was a married woman. He passed the test, and then they threw him in jail. He was in jail, was it 20 total years? I think it was 22 years, something like that. 22 or 23 years. 10 years he was working for him, then he was in jail for 12 years. And anyway, after that, he became second in command. Hashem gave him a huge bracha, obviously. He passed all the tests. Yeah, it was 22 years. He passed all the tests, and Hashem gave them the big blessing, and because he was able to translate dreams, do you guys know the story? Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was able to translate dreams. So one of the people that was in jail with him, that came back up, that Yosef HaTzadik told him that, listen, you're going to go back to your job with Pharaoh, and do me a favor, when you go up there, mention that I helped you out. I translated your dream, because he asked them, there was two people asking him what their dreams were. One guy said, he translated his dream. He said, one guy, you're going to die. And the other guy, you're going to go back out of this jail, and you're going to actually go back and work for the Pharaoh and have your job back. And that's exactly what happened. And he said to the guy that was going to get his job back, when you get your job back, tell the Pharaoh that I'm here. I've been here. It's not right that I'm here. I'm innocent. And because of that, because he was a huge tzaddik. I mean, he's called Yosef HaTzadik. He's not called Yosef HaTzadik by us. He's Yosef HaTzadik by Hashem's standards. In his level, he was never supposed to ask a human to help him. And because of that, at that point, he was in jail for 10 years. And Hashem punished him with another 2 years in jail. Anyway, after those 2 years, so after 12 years total, the guy that he helped finally
told the king.
Remembered and told the Pharaoh about him, because the Pharaoh had a dream that no one could translate, and he asked Yosef Tzaddik to come. And they said that in the parasha, it says that they came down and they ran with him to bring him to the Pharaoh. So, which shows that when Hashem wants to help somebody, the help comes fast. But it's just, we have to have the patience for when it's going to happen. That's why I said, Yeshuat Hashem kiref ayin. It's not just a help. When Hashem helps you, you know He's going to help you. There's no doubt. It's not debatable. It's not something that you're going to wonder if He's helping you or not. If you pay attention to the details, it's 100%. So now, He helped him, and he came down, and they came and brought him up. He became second, and he translated the Pharaoh's dream properly, rightly. He saw that it's 100% legit. He said, oh wow, Hashem is with you. And He made him second in command. So now he became, in essence, the king of Egypt. And he asked his brothers, then there's a whole story of his brothers coming and his father coming and so on. But he asked everybody to promise him that they're going, when Am Yisrael leaves Egypt, to take his bones out of Egypt and bring it to Israel. So now when Moses came throughout the whole Exodus, we have I think it was about a year worth of plagues that they had. The plague every month. They had a plague for a week, almost a week, sometimes a little more, a little less, but it was about a week each plague lasted, and then the rest of the month each makot.
Okay.
They had the plague down for a week, and then they had nothing for 3 weeks, then the tzvardea, and then so on. So for a year, we had about a year, we had all of the plagues, and then Pharaoh finally freed Am Yisrael, or gave up in reality. And then what ended up happening is that Moshe Rabbeinu knew about this promise of needing to take out Yosef's bones. The problem is that because the times were so good in Egypt when Yosef was there, they turned him into an idol. So what do? They hid his bones. They hid his tomb. And no one knew where it was. So Moshe Rabbeinu how's he going to find his tomb? I mean, we're leaving. It's not like he has 2 weeks to look for it. It's not like there's arrows pointing, for Yosef's tomb, make a left. The only way to find it is to find the only person that's still alive from those times. And there was one woman who was still alive from those times, and that woman was actually one of the grandchildren of Jacob, which was actually Yosef's niece. Yosef Tzaddik's niece was blessed by Yaakov Avinu, was blessed by her grandfather to live a very long life. And because when they told Yaakov Avinu that Yosef is still alive, he was old already, and they were afraid to tell him and get him so excited that he would get a heart attack. So she knew this. She knew that they're coming. That her father and his brothers are coming with good news. So she started playing a music instrument because she knew that it makes Yaakov Avinu, makes her grandfather feel good. It makes them calm. And he became happy all of a sudden for the first time in over 20 years. He became happy. And he didn't know why he was getting happy. He didn't put the two and two together. And then, once her father and his brothers, the 12 tribes, once they saw that Yaakov was in a good mood, they gave him the news. And then he realized, that's why she was playing the instrument. She put me in a good mood, so I was prepared for this good news. That's also why, if you ever have to tell somebody good news, it's always good to prepare them for it and not just throw it in there. Okay. Open
What's
the
the
thing if you don't mind.